Welcome back into another video. In today's video, we're going to talk about why Jurassic Park isn't in Dead by Daylight yet. Wait, I already know what you're thinking. This property really makes no sense in a horror game. And you're right, this doesn't make sense. This is madness that we're covering this license on this channel. Here's the thing though, Dead by Daylight recently added Jurassic Park as a possible license in their recent satisfaction survey. I think that this is because DBD will run out of horror licenses to bring into this game and will need to branch out. We've seen them start this transition by bringing in different kinds of licenses and chapters, like bringing in celebrities and even a sci-fi chapter. Does Jurassic Park have any elements of horror that could be incorporated in Dead by Daylight?
It doesn't matter where a license comes from, whether it's a book or a TV show or a movie or a video game. If it's a cool horror license, then it has its place in Dead by Daylight.
Let's listen to this clip of Steven Spielberg talking about the second Jurassic Park movie.
I didn't want the sequel to look exactly like the first movie, and I wanted The Lost World to be a lot more, dark. And the look of the picture should be more contrasty and less, elegant and rich. And now that the audience knows what, 20th century dinosaurs look like, I wanted to take a chance and kind of light them a little more backlit, and a little more film noir, so they didn't just stand there fully in their full, front-lit glory. And that was something that Janusz and I consciously did for the second movie.
Hey everyone, it's Schmuckles. Don't mind my hair woke up. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to this channel if you want to see more content like this. I'm also live on Twitch right now streaming Dead by Daylight. Link for that in the description below. Today we're going to cover the Jurassic Park franchise, the trademark license holders, and the actions that Behavior Interactive would need to do to bring this chapter into Dead by Daylight. When I looked online, I saw a bunch of fan-made concepts focused on the Jurassic franchise. Some of them focus on a giant T-Rex making an appearance in DBD. But let me remind everyone, plausible options for killers in DBD are ones that function on every map. How would a T-Rex chase a survivor inside Dead Dog Saloon? Nemesis was a giant killer, but DBD scaled down Nemesis to fit in doorways. This leads me to believe that the most plausible killer from this franchise is Dodson.
Dodson, we've got Dodson here!
Just kidding. Based on the size of the dinosaurs, I think a Velociraptor from Jurassic would make the most sense as a killer out of all the dinosaurs featured in the franchise. Alan Grant with Ellie Sattler from Jurassic Park or Owen Grady and Claire Deering from Jurassic World would be the obvious choices for survivors. And also, if you don't think a dinosaur would make sense as a killer in DBD, Behavior would still have to contact the license holders to bring in these characters as survivors into the fog. If they were to bring in a full Jurassic chapter, there are so many different possibilities for new maps, including the Visitor Center from the original Jurassic Park or even the Jurassic World main strip. A little background, Jurassic Park is a science fiction action novel written by Michael Crichton. It presents the collapse of a zoological park showcasing genetically recreated dinosaurs to illustrate the mathematical concept of chaos theory. In 1993, Jurassic Park received a film adaptation based on Michael Crichton's novel. Steven Spielberg directed the film and Kathleen Kennedy and Gerald Mullen produced it. Production companies Universal Studios and Amblin Entertainment produced it, and Universal alone distributed it. The film follows a group of scientists exploring a theme park of de-extinct dinosaurs. A catastrophic shutdown of the park power facilities frees the dinosaurs and the group must escape the dangerous island. The film was a massive success, grossing $1 billion in the box office, which is insane in 1993. The success of the first film led to a series of sequels. The Lost World in 1997, Jurassic Park 3 in 2001, Jurassic World in 2015, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom in 2018, and Jurassic World Dominion in 2022. And it seems like there's going to be more Jurassic films because film producer Frank Marshall said that they're actively looking to release more Jurassic World movies. In an interview, he said, "I think that Dominion's going to wrap up this trilogy, but we're not resting on our laurels. We're going to sit down and we're going to see what the future is. We already have our wonderful series on Netflix, Camp Cretaceous, and we definitely want to make quality, good movies with great storytelling, great directors and writers, but we're definitely looking to do more in the Jurassic world." There have been many different adaptations of the Jurassic franchise in the video game space. If we take a look at the end of this Lego Jurassic Park trailer that include both content from Jurassic Park and Jurassic World, we can see that both sets of films are trademark and copyright protected by Universal Studios and Amblin Entertainment. On the official Amblin Entertainment website, it says that Amblin is a film and television production company led by Steven Spielberg. So in order to license Velociraptors in a Jurassic Park or Jurassic World chapter into Dead by Daylight, Behavior Interactive would need to contact none other than Steven Spielberg from Amblin Entertainment and Universal Pictures. These entities together own the video game trademark licensing rights to the Jurassic World and Jurassic Park content. Based on all my research, it doesn't seem like the original writer Michael Crichton owns the movie rights at all. Crichton passed away in November of 2008, and based on the research I've seen online, Jurassic Park is a series of novels written by Michael Crichton with a film adaptation produced by Steven Spielberg. The literary rights to the novel are owned by a company called Crichton's Son. However, the novel and film rights are separate. Television and film rights to the Jurassic franchise are owned by Steven Spielberg's production company Amblin Entertainment and Universal Pictures, which produced and distributed the films. This is consistent with information information that I found when researching the Shining license. If you want to know more about that specific situation, you can click on the title above. It's definitely worth mentioning here that it's two separate license holders for the movie rights versus the book rights. Some people think that Michael Crichton's book would be a better adaptation for Dead by Daylight. I mean, listen to how Steven Spielberg talks about the movies in this clip right here.
The second I read his book, I realized that we weren't dealing with monsters, and this was not going to be a genre of horror, science fiction, fantasy, or back to the famous Monsters of Filmland magazine culture. But instead, this was a really credible look at how dinosaurs might someday be brought back right alongside modern mankind. And that really fascinated me, and that immediately set my own template for not making this a monster movie.
Aside from the debate as to whether Jurassic Park actually fits into the video game, which we'll talk about later in this video, do you think that Behavior would actually be able to obtain this license? Well, Behavior Interactive recently collaborated with Universal Studios on the video game Jurassic World Primal Ops. This is something that Behavior actually developed for Universal. Even though this game was shut down last year on Halloween, it's clear that there's a relationship between Universal and Behavior. I haven't seen anything in particular linking Steven Spielberg with Behavior, but last year on June 28th, there was talk of Steven Spielberg being a true gamer. Halo producer reveals that Steven Spielberg is a true gamer. Halo, the TV show's producer Kiki Wolfkill, has revealed that the world's most famous director Steven Spielberg has been heavily involved in getting video game stories into TV and cinema. Of Steven Spielberg, she said Spielberg is a true gamer. He truly loves video games, which is one of the things that was so excited when he signed on in his first meeting. Spielberg has long been linked to video games. There are pictures of Steven Spielberg in his 30s which show him posing in front of Space Invaders and Missile Command cabinets. He even reportedly had Donkey Kong cabinet in his office. He also directed the movie Ready Player One, which is a virtual reality video game movie. And in interviews for that movie, he talked about how much he loves video games.
I played computer all the way back from 1974 when I was making Jaws, and the first Pong game, the coin-operated Pong game for a quarter, was plugged into a wall on Martha's Vineyard. So I've been playing video games from the invention of video games, but I wanted to make a movie that didn't require people to have played video games or have any knowledge of video games to be able to really go on this ride.
On February 24th of this year, Steven Spielberg teased a possible interest in returning to horror. In a recent interview, Spielberg said, "I want to keep learning and discovering and scaring the shit out of myself and sometimes the shit out of you. I gotta get back to those early scary movies, but that's another story for later on." So do you think that Steven Spielberg's long history of loving video games, combined with the fact that he wants to get back into horror, that he would be open to a Jurassic Park DBD collaboration? It's hard to say, but it seems like the pieces are there if we can justify that Jurassic Park actually would fit in this game. As of today, the classic Jurassic Park movies and the reboots stand as iconic pieces of science fiction. And since Behavior just released an original science fiction horror chapter, as well as included Jurassic on a recent survey of possible licenses to come to the game, people have been entertaining the idea of Jurassic and talking about if it could fit into this game. Matthew Cote said in this story that any media with a horror story in there could qualify into DBD. Do you think the idea of velociraptors chasing survivors would qualify as horror? How would a raptor hook survivors? Could they carry them in their mouths to the hooks? Are velociraptors competent enough to be a Dead by Daylight killer? Does the idea of a raptor choosing to hook a person on a hook make sense? Like, the Demogorgon is a monster kind of killer that isn't human, but the Demogorgon consciously abducts Will Byers and takes him to the Upside Down, which makes sense in the context of hooking survivors in DBD. Raptors, on the other hand, are aggressive like Demogorgon and exhibit similar qualities, but they aren't conscious in the same way. And here's how they aesthetically designed raptors in Jurassic Park 2.
By the time the second one rolled around, I knew exactly what I wanted to see in these creatures, and it was an agility, a quickness of movement, an intelligence, and just a warm-bloodedness that we could relate to in fear on some primitive level.
I think some people will still not be entirely convinced, even though there really are horror aspects to how velociraptors are portrayed in the franchise. To some people, bringing in a velociraptor into Dead by Daylight almost seems like a different game entirely. It sounds like an action sci-fi game not really related to horror. I've heard people say that if Behavior really want to work with the Jurassic license holders, they should make a different game that brings in those kinds of licenses. Do we think that that would be a good idea for Behavior? They've talked about different versions and sequels of Dead by Daylight in the past.
As long as people are actively enjoying the game, as long as they're playing the game and they're eager for more content, as long as the next chapter gathers as much enthusiasm as it still does, there's no sane reason for us to divert any of our energy or attention away from this game.
My take on this is the Dead by Daylight formula is working very well, and this is by far their biggest and most successful game. Trying to build a new game with a big license like Terminator has failed before. It seems like there are two different ways to approach this topic. One is simply that Jurassic doesn't really fit in Dead by Daylight. And two is that Dead by Daylight, a game that's heavily reliant on big third-party license collaborations as a formula for their success, needs to branch out in genre and expand into a multi-genre sci-fi horror action game in order to continue to thrive. We're seeing expansions of this nature by adding a sci-fi chapter and adding celebrities into the game. The game is changing and evolving before our very eyes. I was asking myself, realistically, what is the best way for Behavior to test the waters for a Jurassic Park chapter and even convince the license holders that their property belongs in this expanding universe of Dead by Daylight? In my opinion, the best way to do this is for first Behavior to bring in an original prehistoric themed chapter with a monster or killer that is reminiscent of a dinosaur. Something that's totally original and that can help Dead by Daylight transition our expectations of what a chapter could and should be into more sci-fi horror. If Behavior doesn't make a transition into other kinds of horror genres, I think that this game could eventually become limited by the few really big licenses that are left that Behavior can actually get. I realize a large variety of players with all different number of hours in Dead by Daylight watch these videos. Answer this for me in the comments below. If Behavior actually announced a Jurassic Park chapter, would that excite you to play this game even more? What would your thoughts be on a chapter like that? Do you think that something like that would be well received or not? Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. And again, I'm also live on Twitch right now streaming Dead by Daylight, link for that in the description below. That does it for this video. Goodbye.